Okay, we're going to do a rendered presentation sketch of the assembly that we've made. Presentation meaning that it has to be high quality, that it has to have a lot of visual impact. And in terms of our treatment of this, when we talk about rendering, we talk about not only applying colour to these objects, but also applying a sense of surface quality, whether that surface is a plastic material or wood, or is shiny or dull, something like that as well. So we've got to do all of that, we've got to do it to high quality, and we've got to create visual impact. Before we start rendering the bottle carrier on its own, we're going to talk a little bit about light and value. And we're going to use these little shapes up here to discuss this. So I'm going to imagine that these shapes are green. Alright, that's the colour that they are. They're green, so I have got, in order to render this, I've got light green, I've got a dark green, and I've also got a dark blue in here as well. Okay, that's the three colours I'm going to need, because we have to establish in this cube what is the light face, the medium face and the dark face. To help us, I've drawn where I want to put my light source. My light source is above and to the left of the image. So this is going to be the light face, this is going to catch the most light, this is going to catch some medium amount of light, and this is going to be the face that's in shadow right here. So my light is pencil, holding it quite far back, nice and loose, because you have to work from light to dark when you're working with pencils. It's very hard once you put down a dark shade to try and lighten it back up again. So light green goes in the top surface like that. I then pick up my medium green, or my dark green as it should say, and I'm going to go over both of them. Both of the remaining faces. And what this establishes is it establishes that the light green side is a lot lighter than the dark green. And although I'm leaning quite lightly here, I'm going easy as I go. I'm starting to push harder because I really want a difference. I want to see a nice contrast between the light, the medium and the dark. I want a distinct different shade between all three surfaces. So I'm going over this a few times. But the harder you press, the more green this will become. It doesn't really get darker after a certain point. So we've kind of reached the limit of our darkness that we're going to go there. We've established the light side and two mediums, but one of these needs to be dark. The blue pencil is where we turn to next. And the temptation would be to make this dark side even darker. You would take black or grey and add to it, but that effectively just muddies what you've done. By adding blue as your shadow colour, it retains a little bit of the vibrancy, and it also, under certain conditions, can look as though it's been lit by ambient light, the sky above. So we're adding a little bit of blue just to keep the colour levels nice and bright. And that's essentially what we're looking to transfer across to our bottle holder. This sense of all the surfaces that point up to be light, everything that points to the left to be medium, and everything that points to the right to be dark. We've got a lot of curves in here though, so how do we handle that? Well, I've got a little curved example beside it as well, and we start off in the same way. The top surface, in this case, is still flat like a table, so it gets the lightest value, the lightest colour, which in this case is light green. And then the curve, well, the curve starts off facing off to the left, so at this end of things it should really get that colour. However, it turns round to facing off in this direction, which we know should receive that colour. So we need a change, we need a blend, what we call a gradient between medium right round to dark. Let's do that just now. So, as you remember, we used our dark green, and we went over it a couple of times just to get the darkness looking good. Tidy up the edges a little bit here. So we've laid down the foundation for both our medium and our dark surfaces. in that example. And what we need is we need a blend from dark blue, using dark blue from this side all the way around to no blue by the time we get to this end. So that involves us starting off by pressing quite heavily to match the same tone, the same value as we find here. So pressing down quite heavily and then releasing the pressure as we get around to there. So there's almost no blue affecting the medium surface. And that's how we've got to think of this object down here. Everything that points skyward, light. Everything that points to the left hand side, medium. And everything that points to the right hand side gets dark. Where we've got curves, we'll have to do a gradient blend across them. So let's get started on the bottle holder. I am going to make the bottle holder itself, I'm going to make it green, and I'm going to make the little clamp here a red colour. So for the green side, I've got light green, dark green and dark blue. And for the red parts, I've got a kind of scarlet colour. That won't show up on camera too well, but that's a kind of deep wine colour. And also I'll be using blue to shade that as well. So, let's get started on the green bits now. Let's do the bottle holder in green. So our first decision is anything that points up to the top, anything that points skyward gets the lightest colour. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to render the top portions to look light green. Let's talk about the other faces. Now the other faces are either going to be medium or dark. In both cases, what we have to apply as a kind of base colour is this dark green. So we're going to go in here and shade away. So we've got the light done and we've got the medium done. Okay, but what about the dark? What about the surfaces? Let's pick up a dark blue. What about our surfaces that point over here to the right hand side? Like that little surface in there, that little slim surface. Okay, let's do the flat surfaces first of all, the easy ones. Okay, that points to the left hand side, or the right hand side I should say, and that points to the right hand side as well. So that, we can go in there and darken that. For the rest of the shape, we need to do this blend thing right here. We need to go from dark over here to medium over here. But I'm going to give you a further little tip. I'm going to stay clear of this edge. I'm going to start my darkness probably in just a little bit. Okay, that's just an aesthetic decision. And it's just to keep the edge nice and bright. So we've got dark blue getting applied quite heavily here. This is not a particularly dark pencil, so I'm leaning quite heavily. And we're trying to put this gradient in. Now, we have to talk about the inside surface. The inside surface, these surfaces here point to the right. So we have to do a gradient reverse. This is a surface here that points to the right. So now, on the inside of the shape, we've got dark blue getting applied in here. And then pressure getting released into over here, like so. Okay, so far so good with that. Let's move over to the little clamp now. That's going to be red. And recall from the start of the video, I've got a kind of scarlet colour, I've got a kind of wine red, and I'm also going to use blue again for this. So again, even though the colours change, the principles stay the same. Every surface that points upwards gets the light colour, everything that points to the left gets medium, and everything that points to the right gets dark. So, our lightest colour is going to be the scarlet, so let's ask ourselves which surfaces point upwards. So, this one right here points straight up. So again, we're being nice and light with the pencil. This one here points upwards. And we're going to leave the big curve for now. So both of those point upwards, like that. Those are the easy ones to do. Let's ask ourselves what points over to the left hand side, what's going to get our medium colour? Well, it's basically going to be this end piece right here. So, turn it this way. And pop this kind of burgundy sort of wine colour down. Let's not worry about the curves just yet. But this surface right here, it points to the right, so it's going to get this darkest colour. And as we know from the green stuff, the darkest colour starts off with a foundation of the medium colour. So let's go ahead and just put medium onto this part as well. Light, medium, dark. Let's make this dark. Let's get our dark blue as we've done with the green, and let's go over the dark side with our dark blue. Now this has the effect of pushing the dark sides towards a kind of purple colour, which means that it keeps its vibrancy, it keeps its colour interest. You know, nothing gets too muddy or dull. But we're going to go over this with the blue. There's so much pencil now on this paper that it's struggling to stick a little bit, but we'll keep going, we'll keep pushing. And we're going to stop and we can see a clear difference between light, medium and dark surfaces. Okay, light, medium, dark, all done. Let's talk about the curves now. Let's look at this curve that's going right here. Okay, so we know that the very top of the curve points towards the sky, so it's going to get the light colour. And this colour here, as the curve comes round, it's going to go from the very lightest and it's going to swing round until it's facing to the left, in which case it's going to pick up the medium colour. So we've got a gradient again. We've got a gradient going from light to medium. So I'm going to put down a light shade first of all. Always work from light to dark with pencils. So there's the light shade going down. And then we know we've got a gradient because as we approach this surface right here, it starts to become dark again. Medium, I should say. And it fades off up to the top. Fades off. And we'll also be getting just a little bit through the other side as well. nice curve going on there. Now, we've got a little triangle down here, a little funny shape here. It's going to be pointing straight at the ground, so it's going to be really quite dark. But nonetheless, it starts off as medium, and then I suspect it will go to dark after that. So let's put in our medium colour. And this is going to be really quite dark, because not only is it catching the sunlight, but it's not catching any of the sort of bounce light as well. So I've lent quite heavily with the blue pencil right there. Let's just bring this back in. Make that really quite dark. Okay. Let's look at the inside here. The bottom of this kind of valley inside here, the bottom of that points to the sky, so it's going to get bright. It's going to get the lightest colour, and as we go up the side of the valley, eventually when we get to the split line, we're facing off to the left hand side, so it's going to be medium up here, and then as it points towards the ground, it's going to get dark again. This wee hole needs fixed, okay, mostly medium in here, except for the portion that's facing to the right, in which case we'll need to go in and we'll need to do a little gradient just to darken that. So let's talk about pushing this a little bit by adding some shadows now. It's quite a complicated part, there's a lot of curves, holes, intersections. If we were going to calculate how the shadows fall on this thing accurately, then it would be quite a tall order, but we can be stylised about our shadows. And there's two types of shadows I'm going to show you how to do. The first one's a kind of ground shadow, and what you're going to do is you're going to ask yourself, right, what's going to cast a shadow on the ground, and we're going to project that down. Okay, so we're going to project the outside of these edges down, and I reckon that that shadow falls probably in there. Like that. I think that's it sitting on the ground. So I reckon there's a shadow in there. I'm going to use a dark blue just to render a really simple shadow on the ground. I'm going to use blue because, as I've been saying throughout, it keeps things nice and vibrant and colourful. And we don't have to go really super dark with this blue. Let's add a bit of shadow like that, and then let's also just continue that shadow just around the edge, just like that, just to give a sense that it's maybe sitting on something. And the second type of shadow I'm going to show you now is another super easy one that doesn't involve any calculation really. And it's, well, in computer graphics it's called an ambient occlusion shadow. And it forms in creases, so whenever we've got internal corners, such as where the vertical surface here meets the horizontal surface, and we've got this curve here which represents an internal corner. So we've got a corner there, we've got corners here where this comes down, so a little internal corner there, we've got corners at the bottom of the little pegs, we've got little internal corners everywhere. And what you're going to do with those little internal corners is you're going to take your dark blue and you're going to very softly run your pencil over those corners, very softly, okay? And what we're trying to do is just very, very slightly darken those lines. The effect is subtle, and I'm not sure even the camera may pick it up that well, but we're just going to go over that line. Nice and gently, just darken it, okay? And it's supposed to be fuzzy, so it's not meant to be laser sharp, it's supposed to be kind of fuzzy. But it just gives a little sense of stylised realism to those corners. So I'm not being particularly careful, it can, like I say, it can be fuzzy. So there's a little internal corner there, there's little internal corners there which we're going to darken. There may even be a little corner there where the red bit meets the green bit, and this ambient occlusion shadow work that we're doing, it should spill over into both surfaces, okay? So you are being quite messy here, but it's quite subtle. I'm also going to run a little crease, a little ambient occlusion smear up that split line there and along that split line. I think this is perhaps even so subtle that the camera won't pick it up. And we run it over where the bottle touches the floor as well, because we've got a corner in there and we've got a corner in right in there. And it just has the effect of appearing to ground. Everywhere we've got a little internal corner, just darken it ever so slightly.